Ebbsfleet Development Corporation. Can we just start with recording this? This will be available on our website later on in the day. We do not have anything to the public here today. You're always very welcome to attend. Can we just check any apologies for absence, James?
Yeah, apologies from Councillor Pine and Councillor Murphy. Neil Cameron is expected to join us virtually soon.
Right, great. Any declarations of interest other than standing declarations of interest we have for our planning committee members? Yes, John.
Just one in respect of the planning papers. There's reference to an outside developer dealing with property at Rectory Cottage. If there's any debate on that, I'll leave the room. But I happen to know the developer.
Oh, right, okay, right. Kind of a non-pecuniary interest, but
Yeah,
you want to be excused from it. Absolutely understand, John. Then we have the minutes of our board meeting of the 22nd of March in front of us. Always a very full and high quality set of minutes. Can I just check, is everyone happy with those? Are they a true and fair record of the meeting? Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Great, thank you very much. Then we have our actions. Is there anything you'd like to draw our attention to there, Ian, from the actions that we should be focusing on?
Only just to say, Simon, that action 0602, which relates to the funding for Ebbsfleet Guards Trust, have commissioned some work on that, and I am hoping that we will be able to set up a session in the middle of June. I'll need to come out and fix a date people for that, but that is now underway. So
Great. All right. Good. Thank you very much for that. We have our forward plans. We can see what we're going to be up to. Before we move into the first piece, we have three of our board members who are actually up for election tomorrow. So Derek, Jeremy and John, perhaps just wish them all the very best of luck. Hope as many people as possible go out and vote, but good luck. Hoping we see you at the next board meeting. Hope you have a good day and your colleagues have a good day. So very quickly we can note that. Then I think we're just moving on to the first paper. Ian, your Chief Executive's Part 1 strategic report.
thank you, Simon. A huge amount in here this month. Obviously very pleased to be able to report publicly that well, actually towards the end of last month's meeting, we got confirmation of our capital settlement for the remainder of the review period. So those figures that were subsequently confirmed in writing to us are included in the paper. The next day we had then a visit from the Minister of State for Housing and Planning, John McLean, and as reported here, she visited the Barclay Modular Factory and then came to our offices here. We gave her an overview of our work and progress. So that was very well timed and great to have the then relatively new minister come and visit us so soon in tenure. So that was very good. Just by way of a quick update on paragraph 5.1, where I mentioned that we were, at the time of writing, we were planning to do final interviews for the post of Director of Construction Enabling. Those were carried out to Simon for assisting in taking part in those. We, on the basis of those interviews, we did offer the role, and I'm pleased to say that the preferred candidate accepted. We're just doing the final checks and pre-employment checks. So I'm not going to name the individual, but we hope that contracts will be signed soon and that the individual will be able to start with us very shortly. So again, very pleased with the outcome, successful outcome of that process.
Good. Thank you. Board, any comments, observations? This paper is for noting.
You have a good level of applications.
Yeah, we did, actually, good number of submissions. For the first time, we used an external organisation to help with the process in generating interest. We were shortlisted 4 or 5. We interviewed now.
We interviewed 4.
We interviewed 4, and there was a longer listing process which the consultants did. But yes, so we had a strong field. It's encouraging.
Good. Can I, along that line, firstly, Simon, I think you were heavily involved in that process, so thank you very much for your involvement. So we believe that using an external firm, what they headhunters, what was their role? Do we think they assisted the process?
An executive search firm, I think.
Right.
And yeah, so their role was a bit to advise on how we position sales. Then they work very hard to generate interest in getting reach. I think where ordinary advertising perhaps doesn't get to. So generate a good field, because it's not all about the numbers of applicants, it's about much more about the quality. So yes, it was successful. I don't think we would either need to or want to use that resource on every occasion, but I think in this instance, looking for a very senior role in the organisation.
Right, so you think there was a positive, impact from their involvement in it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
I'm certain about that.
And when's the start date of this individual?
Well, it could be within the next couple of weeks. Just need to undertake some, get some contractual arrangements sorted. So.
Okay, good. All right, that's encouraging. Neil, welcome. Good to see you.
And you. Sorry, I was a little bit late.
Don't worry. We know you had something busy today. Perhaps if we can just minute as well, our thanks to the department and all of the civil servant team who've supported us to bring about satisfactory funding settlement for the Development Corporation. It took time, but I think we've got a very satisfactory result. So thankful to the Secretary of State, the new Housing Minister, and the full civil servant team in the department. Great. So I think that's just that paper is for noting. Thank you, Ian, for that. That then brings us on to the second one, business plan and KPIs end of year performance review.
Thank you. So a lot of thanks to James for the work he does in pulling the information together, and obviously in the paper, and we'll talk about the work of the whole organisation. And I think in terms of the last 12 months or so, there has been 2 quite significant sort of influences in terms of performance, I would say. One was the extended period of budget uncertainty. Say a little bit more about how that impacted on the delivery of certain projects and our ability to meet certain timescales. But the other big influence, I think, which we began to see midway through the year and really accelerated in through the autumn, and is still there, is cost inflation. So a number of our projects, like everybody else in the sector, the private sector organisations that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, have seen a significant impact as a result of cost inflation. For us, it's had an impact on a number of the projects that we've been working up. It's a business case where we've had to reassess the case because of increasing costs and business cases. So let's say those 2 influences have certainly affected our outturn. Having and the report gives the detail on those milestones and those priorities that we successfully met, and those that we weren't able to, which are set out in 2.4. I think despite that very often challenging environment, And those two particular factors you can also see in section 3. We have managed to achieve all of the KPI targets, the actual numerical targets that were agreed and set at the beginning of the year. So despite those challenges, I think my overall sort of summary is that reflects a very credible, high performance given the difficulty. And that's only been achieved, I think, with a lot of effort and input from all the staff in the organisation, but our role in supporting organisations and our delivery partners to enable them to deliver those numbers is also evident. And I would give thanks to all of those partners to acknowledge particularly the huge contribution of every member of staff that's helped to achieve that outturn. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ian. A lot of information in here. Paul, can I ask for any comments or observations, Valerie?
Thanks. That's a question, please. You talked about a couple of schemes where we not been able to completely target because of business planning issues related to inflation, blah, blah, blah. But there were two which I didn't really understand, and that the reasons given for those two not being met around not having sufficient confirmed CDEL budget. It was before I was on the board, clearly, but did we not put sufficient in terms of the business planning? Did we ask for more budget than we received? Is it that actually, as the years progress, the schemes are more expensive than anticipated? I mean, I just don't.
Well, so there were two factors as mentioned. One was the delay in getting our budget confirmation. So
it just literally postponed the project.
Well, yeah, we didn't get it until last month. So we've gone 11 months of the year without knowing how much money we've actually got to spend, which has meant that we've not been able to progress those schemes because we couldn't be sure that we could actually deliver them because we didn't have the money to do that. So as a consequence of that budget uncertainty, those a number of projects effectively went on the back burner because we just couldn't progress them. And then the other factor prevalent, so particularly through the latter parts of the year, still now, is that cost inflation. So even when you got your budget certainty, costs have increased for that project that was in our programme. We're having to undertake some reassessment of that. So some projects have been affected by one thing, some the other, some have been affected by both. But 2.4 sets out those that are particularly affected by those factors. I think we will feel the effects of those two things over the next 12 or 18 months, because once a project stalls, it then takes time to reinvigorate that, and that's a really big priority for us now. Where we are now, we do have the budget certainty. Huge amount of work going on to reinvigorate those projects. Sometimes, well, in fact, in most cases, we're having to reassess the cost because the costs have increased. So that's a real priority for this year, is to progress rapidly those projects that were on the back burner, get them to the point where we can actually deliver.
Is it something we could do differently this year if we make an assumption that there may be a delay in getting confirmed?
Well, we now do have our confirmed budget for the next.
No, I understand that.
Years.
Just talked about, but in terms of lessons learned, so that we don't find ourselves playing catch up. I mean, how do we better, as it were, manage the situation?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to say it was a pretty unusual circumstance. I've worked in this field in different organisations for many, many years now. Others around the table have too. Circumstance we encountered where we didn't have our confirmed allocation until nearly a year in. Pretty unusual. So we managed that as best we could. I think we were fleet of foot. We were, as all know, we've looked at how we use the resource that we did have, plus receipts. Is there anything that we could have done differently? I'm not sure that I can point to it. I think we were pretty fleet of foot, and the board understood the challenges that we were faced as an organisation. So, but a pretty unusual set of circumstances, I think.
Thank you.
All right. Well, look, if I can just, for the minutes, thank everyone at the Development Corporation for this, I think, fantastic set of results, actually, given political, economic headwinds. Mark, we completely blew through the completions target of 630 to 632. So, so it's good budgeting, I think, there. Important if we can also thank all of the house builders and subcontractors, contractors, operation in the Garden City. Without them, we wouldn't, hit these KPIs that we set. So huge thanks to everyone who's been capital at risk and working hard here to build much needed homes. I also do think where we partially met or haven't met some of these, we've said before, the kind of resets we've got for Blue Lake, Medway Development Area, Grove Road, that's a good miss. Yeah, it's about doing the right thing, appropriate use of taxpayers' money. So, in a way, for me, that's green. That's success in my book. Frankly, it's not failure. Likewise, when we look at the work which is going on the health and wellbeing hub, making sure that we're aligned with our stakeholders there and their requirements is an absolute essential. That we're following the need and what they support, as opposed to spending taxpayer money and getting dislocated from that. So I think a number of these things, and then other things are out of our control with inflation, certain schemes which other parties are involved in. So, I think really an excellent performance, and in some quite exceptional circumstances as well, as Ian has said. So well done to Ian and the whole team for that. So, are there any other comments, or is that duly noted? All right, great. Well done, everyone. Well done, Ian. Then communications report. Caroline.
Nothing too much to add in addition to the report, which I will take as read. I'll summarise a few highlights from the past 6 weeks. We're now entering phase 2 of our website build project. This is utilising the findings from phase 1, which was our audience data and research to deliver an improved sitemap and user experience journey. Within phase 1, we have now completed the variety of stakeholder engagement opportunities, which included workshops with our internal team, digital surveys, website trackers and heat maps, and exit interviews embedded onto the current website. We've had some really valuable feedback from these findings, which is incorporated into the annex, which focuses on our operational performance, the findings of the staff workshop, and opportunities for us to identify with user experience principles to ensure that we prioritise the right content and pathways based on this captured feedback. This week, we have now moved on to phase 2, which is transitioning the findings and embedding them into an interactive sitemap, with the focused efforts on the milestones which have been discussed in previous boards, and how we can ensure that we're highlighting timelines for a variety of our projects. It's all coming along really nicely so far, so really positive progression with BECG, who are delivering the website for us. We have utilised our new digital newsletter system. We trialled our first engagement opportunity with our developers. So we designed and delivered a digital newsletter to engage with our local developers on social value across EDC. And within this platform, we're able to monitor opens, click-throughs, uptake. So it's really rich in what we can find out from this cost-effective method of communication. So we'll continue to deliver content that can be distributed through relevant audiences via the newsletter. We're also focusing on communications that align with some upcoming community events, which I'm sure will be covered in the placemaking report. But for now, we are focusing on the upcoming community board taster session, which is inviting local community members to come down to our next community board event and get a real feel of what it's like to get involved in the community board and have a taste of all the things that they can contribute to living in Ebbsfleet, and then planning all of the comms and relevant activities for Fusion Festival, which is taking place early July. So that's really a whistle-stop tour of everything that's covered in the paper. Welcome any questions.
Right, thank you, Caroline. Any comments, John?
Obviously, I know you're obviously doing a lot of things, which is all good. In all those journeys of talking to people, what disability groups are you tying in with as far as the understanding of what we're putting out there is understood? I know you're changing the current website, fabulous. The current one is appalling. So I'm totally delighted on that. But if we end up with something equally as appalling, I'll be quite vocal about it.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's totally, if you've got a sighted problem, or if you're dyslexic, as I am, it is an appalling sight. And are we talking to any of those groups to understand how they would perceive what we're putting out there? Because a lot of what we put out is very, very busy. And that becomes a problem if you've got a sight problem or you're dyslexic, you just can't deal with it. So who are we talking to, please?
So I can answer your comments kind of in two parts. First of all, completely hear you and acknowledge your comments regarding the current website. That was also reflected in the feedback that was provided through our exit surveys. So that's really kind of honed in on the fact that we need to deliver something that's reflective of our wider audience needs. We're working, and this will come throughout the latter stage of phase 2 and phase 3, where we're working with accessibility experts who will be providing that sounding board to ensure that the new content is accessible to different users and is compliant with accessibility guidelines. So that will come at the end of phase 2, phase 3, and we're working with accessibility experts. We've also procured, we've onboarded ourselves to a really, really helpful and knowledgeable system, which allows us to monitor our accessibility for the website, which means that once we've got this great new website, that we don't fall into old traps of creating a really busy platform, and that we retain that high level of compliance. So end of phase 2, we'll be engaging with the experts to help guide that, and that will be through a number of kind of stakeholder workshops and kind of encouraging our local residents to share their thoughts and experiences of the current website and how it can further be elevated, and then having that platform that allows us to continually monitor the new website so that we don't fall into kind of old habits, and make sure that we retain kind of fair use and accessibility for all.
All right. Any other, Simon?
If it's possible, I'd like to have a look at the Social Value Week newsletter that you sent out. If you send me a link for that, would be great. Do you have any spare copies of the Ebbsfleet Living magazine as well, that was distributed last month?
Yes, I can grab them from downstairs and I'll bring them upstairs before we go to front too.
Lovely, that'd be great, thank you.
All right. Good, thank you, Simon. Yes, Valerie.
A silly question, really. There's really clear indicators, aren't there, on the feedback of the website? People really wanting more info and clear info on events. Frequently asked questions, so presumably that was missing before. Maps. I mean, are we addressing all those? Because actually it would really help us, wouldn't it, as well? There's a good reciprocal benefit here if we can get that just so focused on.
Yes, absolutely. So the report that you have in your papers is a slightly condensed version. The report that EECG provided was 65 pages long, so I can appreciate that you probably wouldn't want to read all of that, but that just demonstrates the wealth and the extent of the data that they captured. There were open text boxes for people who visited our website to give their feedback. Some of it was frank, and
There's one from John Bird.
I'm not too sure.
There probably will be one. I've got one coming later.
Oh no, don't have positive thoughts about the new website, John. But the comments were borderline scathing, reflective of kind of what we already knew were our downfalls of the old website, but already this week we have seen all of this really valuable feedback start to be implemented in the new wireframe. We're also looking into ways that we can improve our interactive maps so that the maps can kind of grow as Ebbsfleet grows, and we can respond in a more effective way to deliver the resources for all of our stakeholders, including ourselves. So in short, yes.
Good, thank you.
All right. Great, Daniel.
This is not about the website or about the paper, it's a branding question. On my way here, I followed a fast track bus. I haven't actually seen a fast track bus. And it was the back of the bus was full of branding. It had Dartford, big letters, Dartford, Ravesham, slightly more discreet. A coat of arms, which I took to represent Kent, but I couldn't, my eyesight wasn't good enough to pick it out. And there are one or two others. But I was expecting the leaf of the Ebbsfleet Development Corporation. Is there a reason why we don't have our branding on the fast track bus? Or maybe it's on the sides I couldn't see. Maybe it's all over the side. I don't know. Not on the back, anyway, where the rest of it.
Daniel's making a strong pitch for a wrap here at all the buses. With
And a wrap, yeah, a
The
wrap.
reason is because we probably haven't paid for it to be on there, so, but we'll investigate. As part,
I can't imagine Dartford's, I mean, they're tight as, they're very tight, aren't they?
You'll investigate.
We'll investigate.
You weren't one of the original partners, that's why not.
All right. That's great.
Right, I think if we put money in, I think we ought to,
Put more money in. But
I think it should be a freebie. Right? We should get.
touche, Daniel. Touche. Thank you very much. A couple of quick points. When's go live date? You knew I was going to ask this.
It's the same as last time, summer, July.
Summer, July. Yeah, July. Not like we won't launch it like in August.
23 or 24.
Yeah. So July. Okay.
2020.
July launch. And another point, obviously, you know, John, Jeremy, they're out talking to lots of residents. Maybe worth, again, conferring with them to work out areas where residents, you know, feel they're not getting the information they want, what kind of information they want, where their hot buttons are, and to see whether or not we can address any of that through communication. Understand their frustrations. If they think something was going to happen, hasn't happened, make sure there's a timeline for happening, make sure the website shows, bang, this is, you know.
Yeah, so as part of the project delivery, we have a set period of time for content creation. So that's when we'll be linking in with local authority comms, just to make sure that there's that aligned messaging and it reflects that we're providing the content that people need and people want transparently and easy to access.
Great. Just remind me, how many wards are there within our red line, John?
There will be one ward. Why the boundaries in Ravesham changes, one ward. In Dartford, I think there's about 3.
About 4 wards. Yeah. So we'll be able to get feedback from, you know, leaders or maybe the successful candidates for those wards. Just find out what's going on at the doorstep, you know, and just try and, you know, sort of assuage any concerns. In those wards. Okay, great. All right. That's excellent. Good work.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you in early July. Yeah. Okay. Good. Mark, go on. Tell us how you hit 632. Go on.
Thank you, Simon. Well, so yeah, the usual update for me, planning committee update covered in section 2, just to draw board's attention. So 2.2 just reflects on a sort of a training and briefing day we had. So thank you to Fred, Valerie, and Neil for coming to that. I thought that was a really helpful day. Went out to Cable Wharf and had a little bit of a look around. 2.4, just to wanted to record our thanks to Councillor Honeysett, who's just been involved in the planning committee since the beginning. Neil has sent him a letter, a note of thanks. As chair of the development sites update, yeah, the usual update in Annex A. Just to pick up on a few things, there's the meeting of the design forum coming up in the next few weeks to cover or to look at the major urban park in Eastern Quarries. That's a significant bit of open space between Alcott and Ashmere and Ashmere villages. So we're doing pre-app at the moment. Community board are looking at that next week, and then there's also the design forum later this month. We're expecting quite a collection of applications submitted around Liverpool Embankment West in June, so they have to submit reserve matters by a particular date in June. Not exactly sure what to be honest. So we're expecting a collection of applications to be coming in at a similar time then. And yeah, the other larger application, Alcuden 5B, which is a scheme, or West Hill Homes Committee had a presentation on that recently. There is a model in the corner if the board want to look at that on the way out. But that will probably be coming in at some point in May. 4.1 just references the costs application work with PINS. We have received confirmation or some advice from PINS last week that we should be getting a response both as a landowner and as LPA on the costs of applications within about 4 weeks. Planning performance is covered at 4.3. So
Can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
We've gone through bankruptcy restructuring.
Yes.
So is there going to be anything here other than a claim which has been liquidated through that process? Or is there money which is in some way being advanced and held?
No, I don't believe there's any pot of money that's been held anywhere. This will be a decision that PINS make, and then they will then say whether the claims are legitimate or not, or sort of be determined. And then it would then be for then those organisations to then engage with LRCH then about
Were there provisional
process.
cost claims within their restructuring?
Didn't make any allowance for it from what the documents I read. This purely gives us a mandate to say to them, we have a valid claim, as opposed to it in any way enabling them to actually pay it.
But I guess if we give the green light to move forward with a valid claim, they're just going to say there's no money.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there is no money.
But I think what it does is it strengthens it.
Because legally, they've been through a process, which means that all of their obligations are effectively being discharged as per that plan of restructuring through. Is that correct?
The restructure enables them to continue.
Any claims which surface at post the restructuring date?
Part of their process to continue.
Okay, just to be clear here then. So if our claim material, if we do have a valid claim, is that something which attaches to the restructured entity? So that is still potentially money good? Or is it something which has been previously discharged through the bankruptcy process?
I don't think it's been discharged through the bankruptcy process, but it doesn't. But what the PINS claim doesn't do is it doesn't agree a number. So it obviously loads of organisations have then put in cost claims, and then it would then allow for then a discussion to take place.
All right, so this is something that hasn't been dealt with through there.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting point, Grace, because I think the question you're asking, at the point where they made this arrangement, there was a list of creditors that were the creditors at the time. This claim would not be there because it's not a claim at the moment. It hasn't been verified as such. But assuming there were future creditors beyond now, does the CVA arrangement at all deal with those or not? I don't know. The CVA just enables them to continue in a new. But it turns those debts into a share offering. It did. So if somebody has a debt in the future, is that affected by that arrangement? We don't have share. The PINS discussion won't give you a confirmed debt. No, I know, but on claim. I know.
Yeah, okay.
Assuming it turns into.
Can we perhaps just report this back to the board? Obviously, I've taken company through Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection and restructuring, and that meant that any claims which didn't surface and weren't taken forward and dealt with in that have gone. The entity was then an entity where you couldn't come forward with future claims. But there is a potential from what we've discussed here is that if we're successful, we have a discussion about an amount that is due to us, and potentially that is something which they have to pay, even though they've been through.
And we have legal then.
Or maybe not. I think we just need to know.
Cautious, Simon.
Yeah, indeed. That's what.
Don't let's spend that money yet.
No,
and it has taken PINS a year to get to this stage. So
right. I think if we could just legally know where we are, it'd be good just to let us know. Daniel.
Couldn't we, or didn't we, enter a claim on a cautionary basis for the administrator? And is it too late to do that? Say that we have a claim, we can't quantify it. We have a potential claim, we can't quantify it. And my second question is, are we empowered to own shares in a company? So if we were offered shares in the company by way of satisfaction of any claim, we have to be legally empowered to own them. And that would require something for a corporation like ours, require something specific. We're not like an ordinary body.
I think it's a good question.
We have the powers given to us, not any other powers.
It's a good question. Look, what I suggest here is, why don't we kind of have a clear understanding?
Neil,
Neil, are you going to?
That's not showing on the screen.
Neil, were you going to come in there?
I was just going to ask, and I've no idea what the answer is. Should we consider whether to say to the planning inspectorate, although our claim was made against Exco, will you now consider it against Yco, the new company? I don't know whether you can do that because they weren't a participant in the examination, but it maybe you can, and is it worth investigating? Otherwise, we're going to have a costs award against Exco. Exco have disappeared, and Yco have emerged.
Don't think Exco have, in your example, don't think Exco have disappeared. They've just restructured their debt.
Yeah, I think Neil's point is well made, Neil. I think let's just get to the bottom of where we are legally on this. If it is possible that, this.
Yeah, depending upon the PIN's decision.
The potential to negotiate a sum.
Yeah.
At some point in the future to be determined, but attach itself to the post-restructured entity as opposed to having been captured in the pre-restructured entity, then given that, assuming this entity is going to do something and needs us to do that, it would be good if we kept alive a potential future sum which is due to us as part of that, benefit of the taxpayers, the good United Kingdom. Let's just get to the bottom of it. Yeah.
Yep, I will.
Right, John.
I agree. I think we need legal advice, but I'm not a lawyer. My guess is that we didn't actually raise an invoice and therefore a debt. Therefore, it's not been put to one side as a shareholding. The company still exists, as I understand it. It will be coming back with its scheme. And at that point, it's still alive. We can then represent our bill if it's felt that our bill is applicable and legal by the planning inspector. Whatever that bill happens to be, we can then present it and it has to be paid. But picking up on Daniel's point, I think it's a very good point. I was thinking about that myself. We must be on the same level here, Daniel, for some reason.
Well, it's local government.
As the company's got no value, if we've got shares in it of no value, it seems a good time to put it over to the trust, which is trying to find things of value. If it then works out that the company does do something, those shares then have value, we're giving the trust something that costs the government and us no money.
Again,
We'll take
You may have diverged from being on the same page.
We'll take any old rubbish, but thank you very much, John. Well, the answer to that is that would be up to the Development Corporation. But we would also have to check that the trust was allowed to own shares. I think it probably, obviously, I think it might be more likely because it's just a charity. I don't think it has a special status of a development.
Okay, we'll get back to that. But in our case, we're dealing with a number of hundreds of thousands of pounds of costs, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah. And then there are similar costs for Dartford and Gravesham as well, is that?
Yeah,
Not for Croatia.
Yeah.
We got paid up.
Yeah, Dartford, EDC and Kent put in a joint claim because we were doing joint work.
Oh, right, okay. All right, so anyway, let's get to the bottom of it so we just understand if it's possible to influence the way that keep alive something of value, wherever it may ultimately reside, then let's do that. Yeah, all right, Mark, carry on.
Yeah, so just a couple of other things. So 4.3 just touched on the planning performance the year, so thank you to the team for that. And then section 5, yes, Bill already mentioned about the housing, the housing completions. Yeah, we're already reporting at 25 completions this month. On the dashboard, you'll see the forecasting for the year. It generally shows more completions through quarter 1, 2 and 3, and then less in quarter 4. So if that then transpires, we should possibly then get slightly earlier certainty about housing delivery this year than we did from last year. And there was a developer meeting this month. I was on leave for a few days, so I didn't go. But just a few bits of feedback. They were reporting about sales picking up, predicted price reductions through some housing sales didn't seem to have materialised as much in Ebbsfleet as maybe in other locations, and the family housing market was doing well. So from the limited number of people there, it sounded relatively positive from the excellent minutes there, Elizabeth.
Yeah, surprise if you have less completions nationally, then house prices hold up. It's a real shock there. So, all right, good stuff. Any further questions?
Can I just
Yes,
ask something on the Annex B, the dashboard? All of the top lists are amber, and I was reading it thinking, gosh, that's not actually very helpful in a way. Could you put an increasing, decreasing, or flatlining arrow, so we can at least get a feel for the trend?
Yeah, sure, we can. It's something I've been thinking about for a while, actually, myself, because generally they are amber. Because in some areas they seem to be okay. In some they are. So, for example, build costs. One developer will say it's a problem. Another one won't say it's a problem. So it's been difficult to maybe get some consistency of risk. But we can do some work on that next time.
Thank you. This is a bit.
Neil has a question.
Yes, Neil.
First of all, to endorse Mark's thanks to Derek Hunnisett, who obviously been a member of the committee for much longer than I have, but he's a very wise and sound voice on the committee. So I think we should all thank him for his time and contribution. On the numbers, we're celebrating the 632, which, as Simon said, is just busting past the total. But of course, we get to it by the 619 plus the 13. And Mark, on the dashboard, you've got 619 on. And I just wonder, for consistency, whether that should be 619, which were completed within the Development Corporation area, and whether in the past we have counted the off-area affordable housing. Probably not the most encouraging, but we need to be consistent, because we got 632 and we got 619 on the dashboard.
We do need to be consistent. Well spotted, Neil. So that is consistent with what we've done previously. So there have been other years, some time ago now, where we were looking at sites either in sort of the impact area, the wider area, where we felt as though there was an influence, or through developer contributions to Eastern Quarry that were then delivering off-site. So the way in which our housing KPI is worded, it says that we can then include those numbers within our business plan number. But for the purposes of the dashboard, I was trying to track the number of homes completed within the red line boundary, rather than necessarily tracking a story around our KPIs and our business planning. So that is why there is a difference.
So everything's right.
Yeah.
So we meet the KPI, and it's right to have 619, so we can continue to pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah. So,
But no, well done. Well, we should really be saying well done to all the house builders, and let's hope that they carry on.
Yeah. All right, thank you for that, Neil. Nick.
Do you have a sense, Mark, over the next couple of years, maybe 3 years, what the sort of balance is looking like between apartments and family homes and affordable? What's the trend over the next sort of 3-4 years, you think?
Yeah, I think that there's certainly more of a push to be looking at diversification of affordable housing products. So I know that Clarion and Countryside are looking at that at Ashmere. So there have been some areas where some market homes has been flipped to affordable. So I think generally there'll probably be a move about having increased affordable. It's generally, I think, keep we're looking at that down.
Is that because first homes is beginning to bite?
Well, yeah, I mean, First Homes has been a product that they've introduced in some areas. At Ashmere, I think Kikimo were interested looking at First Homes as well. In Cable Wharf, Clarion might be looking at more affordable renting instead of flipping the shared ownership products to affordable renting. Clarion's been interested in that through some sections of Castle Hill. So that generally seems to be where the trend is at the moment. First Home seems to be a little bit more an attractive proposition maybe than shared ownership. But yeah, affordable rent seems to be more popular in some areas as well. Certainly the market's saying, yeah, that the family housing element is more popular than the apartments. There are some apartment schemes that are coming forward that are, for example, 3-bedroom apartments. They aren't only 2-bedroom, and we're getting very few 1-beds. So they are generally a more, a sort of flexible, resilient sort of apartment product. But there are quite a few apartment schemes lined up. But yeah, we haven't got any indication of people particularly pausing apartments out of those ones that have been consented.
And have any of our house builders sold to BTR or PRS?
No. So West Hill Homes, which is the scheme I mentioned that might be coming in at the end of May, they've been looking at a product where they're single sort of homes that are privately rented. So sort of a PRS model there, but for single sort of family housing. And again, Countryside and Clarion seem to be interested in that in Ashmere, but we haven't got any details of them yet in terms of what that is. But yeah, Clarion might be coming back to us in about a month's time to look at diversification generally.
Thank you, Mark. John?
I think I know 2 housing associations have pulled out of buying blocks because of the problem of how the finance is structured. With the service charges, looking purely at the building, it works on affordable. When you then throw in the service charge, which you can't reclaim that back from the tenants, and it comes off the rent, they're finding the cost of buying the building they can't offset. So I know 2 have pulled out in Cable Wharf, for example. I'm trying to say one.
Because of estate service charge or building service charge?
Estate service charge. They buy the freehold of the building, they can control that. They can't control is the estate service charge, and that's killing the deals.
And the tenant would pay the building service charge.
Yeah. In addition to the rent, and they can't then do it, so it doesn't stack.
I mean, estate service charge for sort of Knott's Landing estate. If anybody gets that reference.
I remember the programme. I'm trying not to.
Rather than an Ebbsfleet Central type of service charge. I mean, it should really be relatively affordable. It should only be 1 or 50p a foot.
Some of them, the rents are, service charge are quite high. They don't pull out for no reason because
that will only get worse as you dial up district energy, waste, and all of those estate bits which aren't incorporated in the rates.
I wasn't aware of the Cable Wharf thing, so I'll check in with Keeman about that.
That's a specific thing where the estate charge can't be levied onto their tenant.
Just the size of the bill, so
they have to bear that.
Okay. Basically comes off the rent. Then if the rent's not paying for the cost of the purchase on what grants they can get, just financially does stack up.
So it's not covered by housing benefit.
All right. Mark, anything else?
No, that's it today. Thank you, Sam.
Any further comments on this? Just for noting. Well done. Thank you. Kevin, Ebbsfleet Living. See you again.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll take the paper read as usual, but just pick out a few highlights. This month saw the launch of the Ebbsfleet Garden City Trust Community Fund. So that's taken over from the EDC Community Investment Fund previously. So good luck to them, and our team will continue to signpost people to that new fund. It's been made available on websites and other directions as well. In terms of key events in Ebbsfleet over the last month, in particular, the Easter event was really active and lots of volunteers getting involved in delivering an event at Castle Hill where over 400 adults and children attended. So that was very encouraging, both in terms of the number of adults and children attending and also the number of volunteers that we got for that event, which was really great. The culture group also hosted an event called Tales of the Lost World, which actually was 5 events simultaneously held across sites in Ebbsfleet, Northfleet and Swanscombe. Very ambitious, very well received. All of the tickets were all sold in advance for that. It was the first example where the culture group, which are residents, were designing the event, but then were supported by professionals in helping them deliver the event on the ground, which was really great. We concluded the Imperial Impact Programme, which saw 60 students looking at some of the key challenges with us locally. We've got some really great ideas, which are going to be formed into a booklet, and we'll look to maybe take some of those forward if they're appropriate in the future. We continue to work with Imperial and a number of other projects as well, looking at behavioural insights and community building in our area. The other very notable thing to pull out was the employability programmes, which were delivered, 2 of them during March in partnership with O'Halloran and Bryan, which are a Gravesham company. Just really notable was that of the 12 people who attended that event, 8 had jobs immediately, and 5 of them with O'Halloran and Bryan. So really great to see local people getting jobs through these programs. And then just looking to the future, obviously next week is the coronation. So we're looking at a number of events to celebrate that. Of note, particularly will be one in the Penn Park in Springhead, which will be a neighbourhood scale event. And we'll also be having another one in Castle Hill. And we've also produced 2,500 commemorative badges, which hopefully board members will see today. So
we are wearing.
Yes.
Message.
So every student or every child in the local area has been given a badge. All the schools have been given them, or shops and other things have been given them to sort of commemorate this. And actually, notably, the event in Penn Park will be the last event that was funded through the Community Investment Fund. So it's kind of a good conclusion to that fund over the period. So another sort of future thing to look forward to is on the 18th of May, we will be launching our cultural prospectus. And that will be bringing, sort of celebrating what we've done over the last 5 years in terms of cultural development. It'll be bringing Nick Sirota and other people from Arts Council to see what we've done here. And hopefully we'll be making funds and bids to them in the future to continue that good work. Happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I'm certainly coming to that, I think, on the 18th of May. I think other board members, they're very welcome if they would like to attend that. John?
Yeah, it is in the paper, so I will deal with it here. It reads positively. Item 2.3 in your paper. The reference to the Imperial College of London. As far as I'm concerned, for me, that was a disaster. I don't know what control you had over them. I don't know what areas you sent them into. I've seen no feedback from them. But the hard work I know that the board, through Ian, and I have been trying to do with my members of trying to build a relationship between the EDC and us that was positive, was ruined.
What happened?
One of the reps, I won't name, decided to go onto Facebook and say that the EDC and GBC, Gresham Borough Council, were looking to take over and buy Portland buildings, which we're not. She said the council had the ability to take the building, which we haven't. And I've got commentary she put in here, for example. She says some of the people at the EDC are lovely. They all seem to have mixed directions or unwilling to discuss certain things. She then goes on to say that the corporations where it's coming in and trying to knock down things and sterilise the place. That they're in here to do community research and do community feedback, and agreed with somebody locally that we're effectively in the business of greenwashing the area.
So
And
who is this individual? Just to
one of the 60 students. As far as I'm concerned, if we bring in these students to work in an established community, which is where she was working, and put a Facebook out in an existing community, we should have better control over what she was saying on our behalf.
Okay.
And she, total disaster for me.
Okay,
And
so
it's
just
really
to,
put us back.
did she kind of get access to a platform? Was she communicating on a platform? Is that, I'm just trying to.
Yeah,
It's been all over Facebook.
Sort of put it, there was an individual student. The students were based in Northfleet Football Club, or sorry, Ebbsfleet Football Club for the duration. So obviously they interacted with the Northfleet surroundings. They got meetings from residents. The residents told them about the Facebook group. She put a notice on the Facebook group asking for some ideas for her project. Obviously, we were made aware of what she'd said, and she took it down straight away. We worked with John's officers to kind of explain the situation. It was taken down immediately. And actually, the local community reps in the community investment company said, when we explained it to them, they said, "Oh, now we understand that we'd really like to work with her on this project." So it was taken down immediately, and then they proceeded to work with her, and they had a sort of positive relationship with her. We also obviously made aware we couldn't control what every student did, every student spoke to. However, the tutors from Imperial did give notices to everybody when this was made aware to them. Everybody had to sort of approve things with us before they went on to the Facebook in the future. So it was very unfortunate. We did apologise on behalf of BDC. The students apologised themselves, but I guess they were overly enthusiastic.
Social media. Sorry about that, John.
I'll leave it there, but I'm just making the point. We've been working hard to try and get a belief of my cabinet, my council, that the EDC weren't trying to gentrify the area, weren't trying to ignore the community. That one thing with lack of management, I've got to say, and I wasn't happy with your response to me at all. That's why I ignored it. Didn't come back to you. Has put us back a year or two, and it has been disaster. So if you're trying to do something positive, that one action killed it.
Okay, John, point well made. It's just let's just look whatever protocols we've got around this to try and avoid repeat occurrence. Social media is social media. It amplifies your voice. Also, we live in a world of free speech. Okay, that's a shame. Otherwise, fantastic work. I'm going to move on from that point. Come back to you. Just had one quick question. Ebbsfleet Garden City Trust Council, does it, on the new website, will it have a link to Ebbsfleet Garden City Trust website on it? Good, great. Simon.
Yeah, in terms of section 3.8 and the Construction Skills Academy, I think it's great that this is being investigated. It's a real benefits which have already been demonstrated through some of the pilots that you've been running. So very much endorse that. Are you talking to others who've set up similar construction skills academy to get their insights and perspective on that? And on the Olympic Park, for instance, is a successful sort of skills academy that's been set up there in collaboration with a number of bodies. We're just interested what sort of background research you're doing on this.
Yes, so Laura and my team have been doing a lot of work. I've worked with Grace and the Dartford offices on this, so everyone's kind of working in a similar direction toward it. Kidbrooke is also a really good example locally where this has been working well. I know Helen and Brian have been doing really good work in Gravesham already, so that's where there's established platforms. We're building on those. In terms of the Skills Academy itself, obviously we're looking for potential sources of other funding that might help support that. And again, between ourselves, Dartford and Gravesham, we have been looking for other funding sources and things to apply for that as well. But yeah, very much looking to other sites, like Thamesmead, Kidbrooke and Olympic Park are doing similar things and seeing what we can learn from them as well.
And what sort of time horizon are you looking at in terms of this? I know you've referenced this sort of skills bootcamp funding for summer 23, but in terms of a longer term project here, what sort of time horizon are you looking at?
Well, there are potential opportunities depending on funding streams for a meanwhile site perhaps to pop up. So if there was funding available, there's certainly interest and demand locally that perhaps we could look at a meanwhile site that might enable it to come forward more quickly. Right. Otherwise, it would be sort of in the medium term that would be looking to that. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the Ebbsfleet red line area. We've been looking with partners to see if there's somewhere complementary that would serve both of us, but there are potential sites we've been kind of looking at.
Thank you. All right. Anything else, board? Kevin, testing activity. looking forward to a great report of what goes on for the coronation. Good, thank you very much. That's duly noted. Gerard, Finance Operations and Programme.
Thank you, Chair. The report in front of you shows the position as at the end of our financial year end, so 31st of March 2023. All the numbers are subject to audit by our external auditors, National Audit Office. Just to mention that their audit is reliant very heavily on the information from the local government pension scheme. Unfortunately, that doesn't become available until the autumn, so our audit won't happen until late summer, and our annual report and accounts, having the audit concluded, will become published later this calendar year. So unfortunately, our 22-23 annual report and account won't be available until much later this calendar year. The numbers in front of you do show the position that we think is fairly accurate, or very accurate. The capital spend is detailed in section 3. You'll see that we spent just under 6 million. And our operational and revenue side is detailed in section 2, and the details are shown at Annex A. That's that Excel spreadsheet. Our sponsor department, DLUC, have very helpfully given us flexibility around our receipts. So any receipts that we've generated in 22-23 that we haven't been able to utilise, we can roll forward into this financial year or the following financial year. So we've got up until March 2025 to utilise those receipts. And based on our estimates, we think we will need to use all of those. So that's been very helpful, that flexibility. Previous years, we haven't had that, and we would have, any surplus receipts would have been unfortunately lost or just returned to the Exchequer, but we can now utilise them going forward for delivery of the Garden City, which is very helpful. Just to highlight a few, table at 7.2 just details a few incidents we've had on the sites that we've owned. So, and it shows the actions we're taking to resolve those. Section 8 talks about the staffing and the recruiting that's been going on, and a lot of successful recruitment has been happening, as we've already mentioned. And then I am seeking at section 9 board approval for an updated scheme of delegations. Every year we bring the delegations scheme back to board for review. We have made a couple of changes this year, and these are highlighted in yellow. All the other sections remained unchanged. So the two, as it says at 9.2, we are asking for a new delegation to the Chief Exec to make minor alterations or refinements to EDC policies without needing to bring them back to board for each minor sort of change that we make. And also we've tried to make it clear, I don't know if we've been successful or not, we've inserted a sort of new table at the end of the Annex B to try and explain which roles can approve expenditure and sign off purchase orders and invoices. So that is a new section to try and make it clear which particular roles, people, individuals can approve certain items. So those are the changes that are seeking approval today.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Gerard. Is this is this something that ARAC have had a look at before it came here, or?
They haven't. We've based it on feedback from staff that have requested some changes, particularly around expenses. So we've incorporated that. We just tried to make it clear we've not had any issues in the past with any from the auditors, but as we were doing our annual update, we thought we would bring it to this particular board to seek approval.
Great. I'm just wondering whether we might want to just get ARAC to consider it and then make a recommendation to the board. So the board will ensure it's from ARAC.
I wonder if we take it with in the light of the findings from BDO and so on, then wrap it up to a recommendation.
Okay, let's do that. So we won't take that now.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Fred. Any other comments on this paper? No? Good. Thank you very much, Gerard, as always. That is, I guess, for noting, because we weren't making a decision on the scheme delegation.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just one, I think I'm right in saying, Gerard, the 5.1 of the capital allocation has now been confirmed at 79.5. That was the additional amount, was it, on top of what we'd already? So it's actually nearer 99, I think, million is the total amount of capital.
Yeah, there was like 25 already agreed, and then like 9.5 wasn't there, receipts or something like that. So it is to a shade under 115.
Yes.
Yeah, all's been etched on my consciousness. Yeah. All right. Okay. Good. All right. good qualification list, like minute that, so we captured the full number and the net that's in there. Okay, great, thank you. That's it. All right, thank you very much. Jen, development update?
Yeah, just a short update from me this month, Simon. So going through the main schemes as usual, starting with Ebbsfleet Central. The work on phase 1 with M3, our development manager, continued with a focus on sort of producing a draft strategic programme for the project, and more importantly, sort of a shorter programme very much focused on the next key milestone that they need to bring forward, which is the appointment of the design team and multiple appointments that will involve. So the work to sort of almost finalise the procurement strategy is just about coming together now. And they're looking at sort of initiating expressions of interest, etc., from various frameworks and panels that we will be using to appoint that team, which we hope will be in place by the end of Q2 23-24. And then from there, we will then be able to start working up the detail of what our infrastructure package will look like for phase 1. So, so good progress being made there. In terms of Thames Way and Grove Road to a degree, as I said before, we are sort of in a process of review which is ongoing, so a sort of a limited update, but worth noting that we are now following the outputs workshops with some of the original advisors, going through a process of considering what further technical and commercial support we need on Blue Lake as sort of an initial measure to be able to come back to the board with a direction of travel. And from a Grove Road perspective, we have now appointed some master planning and commercial resource to sort of do a high-level review work with us. That work commences in the middle of April and is looking to report to officers in sort of July, so we will then be able to come back to board thereafter. So those are main updates from me.
All right, good. Board, any comments? No? All right, thank you very much for that, Jen. Then we're on to...
Sorry, may I?
Sorry, Jen.
I didn't know whether to ask or not. This, on Ebbsfleet Central, we talked about designers, multiple appointments, infrastructure, all those words came into it. How far down the road of commitment are we going at this next phase? What range of people are we appointing? Why are we not having a more possibly concentrated design team? Would we get benefits from having a single smaller appointment which had all the necessary skills? Where are we going before we find ourselves, with lots of people on contractual commitments that are difficult to reverse?
So we believe there's value in splitting down the design team as opposed to sort of appointing a single supplier who would then effectively sub-consult down to those specialisms. We think it's much better because we have M3 in place to do that management. It is better value for us to sort of go direct to those multiple designers and then that be coordinated. We will, however, when we procure everything on a drawdown by design phase basis so that we can stop and start if we needed to, the appointments as we see fit, and amend those depending on how the infrastructure package evolves over that time. So we will make sure that the procurements are such that we can protect ourselves and not overcommit beyond the point that we're comfortable.
Okay, and this is going to be overseen by which board committee?
So
Ebbsfleet.
It's currently overseen by the Central Project Board, on which Simon and Nick both sit.
So come to Ebbsfleet Central Project Board, and then any key decisions that will come up through IIP.
Right.
But there is a...
I'm just
sorry,
conscious
just on this one, Daniel, there is a paper which will come to the June board. Didn't want to bring it to this board, right? Obviously, we wanted to make sure that our local government board members were around. Obviously, they've got another focus at the moment tomorrow. But there is something coming to board which will make a suggestion for potential amendments to the project boards, stroke, IIP, and that would answer your question about this kind of oversight.
Right. Okay. I'm just conscious that we had, on some of the things we've withdrawn from, we've had quite large bills for commitments that we weren't then interested in fulfilling.
Well, I think when it comes to that, and you might even have an opportunity to participate in whatever is being proposed, Daniel, moving forward. So to get comfort. So I think we'll be able to kick that one around pretty hard when that paper comes in June. Yeah. to address your point, which is a very good point.
Without wishing to be in any way bureaucratic or over bureaucratic, is it worth flipping that paper through ARAC, given that it deals with approvals and delegations that will inevitably knock on to risk before coming to the board?
Sure. And when's your ARAC relative to the board?
June. And but we can take it. Well, we can take it just in, as a draft at any point.
Why don't you circulate that paper in draft to members of ARAC?
I would doubt we will have any objections to it. It might just be helpful to make sure that it sits in with the thinking around assurance and everything else.
Yeah, could you do that? Yeah, do that. I think also from memory, that board paper, we're talking about something you haven't seen here. That board paper suggested the number of participants in that could also potentially include one member from the planning committee without, I thought the numbers added up to that, maybe not. Yeah. You might want to look at that about whether or not you want to be on that.
Yeah, no, I'll cross that one off. But we've got two ARAC members anyway who will have seen it before, so I don't anticipate a problem. But just makes sense doing it that way.
That's great. We'll do that, and Daniel will be able to answer your very good question.
Right, I hadn't realised that. That is very satisfactory.
Okay,
thank you.
Look what we're.
Of course, Nick.
So M3 are dealing with infrastructure. And then the suite of designers you're talking about is also infrastructure.
Yeah, it's the infrastructure.
Right. Just so that's what we're talking about is.
Yeah, just the full infrastructure. Yeah, but obviously the infrastructure involves car parks, so we need to make sure they are designed appropriately. It's not just sort of it's infrastructure plus some buildings because of the nature of RB provision requirements of DFT. And it's just wrapping all that into the work.
Right, Nick. All right. Good. Thank you very much for that. Jen, thank you. We come to the last part one paper. Ian, you're taking this. It's also Chris Beckett's paper as well. Investment.
So I've been acting as the interim since Julia finished, and our new appointee will take over this this function and will produce the board papers in the future. So it's relatively short, as you can see, as it was last time. Just picking up the key infrastructure projects. I think apart from Springhead Bridge, which obviously was finished some time ago, and we are still in discussion with KCC about adoption. I am still chasing a response back from the Director of Highways about that issue. Chased again yesterday. The main thrust of the other three projects is these are in business case development, either from scratch in terms of the wastewater treatment works, or we are reappraising the electricity supply infrastructure because of increased costs, and also the fast track bus network. So a lot of work over the last 4 to 6 weeks has been by me talking to Chris and making sure that we are resourcing those revised business cases appropriately, bringing in the required expertise to scrutinise cost plans, provide economic appraisals, etc. So this gives you a flavour of the work that we're doing to get those ready. They are all fairly substantial business cases. They're all will come at different points in time. They're all slightly different places, but that's a lot of the work that's being done in that team to bring those through.
All right, good, thank you. Any questions on that?
Neil has a question.
Yes, Neil.
Can I just ask about fast track? So from memory, and tell me if I'm wrong, what we're looking at is a business case for additional expenditure related in the main to the tunnels or construction of the tunnels through to Blue Water. I shouldn't use the word "are we on track," but are we progressing in accordance with plan? Because it just seems we've finalising commissioning of consultants to review key elements of the case, which we need to do. But are we doing everything possible to keep the momentum up on this? Because the sooner that fast track is in place across the whole of the, well, in the main across Eastern Quarry, the better.
I believe we are, Neil. I've been spending quite a bit of time on this one myself over the last four weeks or so. I have to get the balance right between making sure the business case is robust, and it's a fairly complex business case because of various things and challenges that we would inevitably get. So yeah, we need to make sure that it is robust and deals with all those challenges, but we need absolutely conscious we need to keep the momentum up and get that decision through. You might remember from the paper last month that went into a lot more detail about the fast track that there is some interim service that will begin to run along parts of the network through Eastern Quarry, obviously not through the tunnels, and the roads through are not all complete, but ACC are intending to open up some of that service sooner rather than later.
Point is, sorry, on this, obviously one has to wait to see the business case, but it's a fairly simple mechanism. As I understand it from the paper we had, Fast Track can operate and service all of its desired destinations and stopping points without the tunnels. But it takes longer because it has to achieve a diversion and go up towards Swanscombe and the roundabout. So it can operate. The question then is to compare the cost of providing tunnels in a condition which they can be used, obviously, safely by the buses, on the one hand, compared to essentially journey time savings or not having to go around the diversion. And it seems to me it isn't an obvious business case.
You think it's an obvious business case?
It seems to me it isn't an obvious business case. I'm not sure the idea we have to race. It's the idea that it's a slam dunk race ahead with it. Is what I'm just raising a question about, and it needs to be demonstrated that the expenditure is justified by effectively journey time.
And that's
Sorry, after you.
Absolutely agreed that that's a key component of it. But in terms of other work that we need to do, firstly, we have to scrutinise the cost plan because it's a KCC set of numbers. So the first question the board are going to ask me is how do you know these numbers are right? So we need to get somebody to make sure that. And the other element is that as part of our agreement with KCC, that we already have, there is a mechanism for us to get some repayment in the event that the route creates surplus fares. Well, another question we need to ask then is there potential to get some money back or isn't there? Because that then will affect the net cost and that will affect the BCR. So we just need to make sure those components are all examined appropriately. And then, as you say, it may well not be a straightforward answer, but I need to be able to put that whole case together.
And you make a very good point there, Dan. There's a little bit of a teaser actually in this paper because it says subcommittee investment panel, which is maybe gives you an idea about what may be coming for the June paper post having gone through ARAC, and also you'll have an opportunity perhaps to involve yourself in such questions like that before it comes to the board.
That's what these mandatory remarks are that you keep making.
I think he's reading too much into to that particular thing, but
anyway, but you make a very good point, Dan. What's the cost and what are the benefits? Yes, it could use of taxpayer money. Good. Anything else on this? Ian, thank you. I think that then just brings us to the end of the part one part of our meeting. We received some very good written questions from members of the public. So our response to those will be going out to them. Keep them coming. Keep holding us to account. That concludes this meeting. Thank you for joining us, everyone.